story I want to read tonight, I'm not going to read it, comes from a country that no longer exists. It was called Hindustan. Hindustan is now India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, and probably bits of Afghanistan too, and Iran. So it's a very, very old story. I think it's about 850 years old now. Back in the time of the Mughal Empire. And it involves the Emperor of Hindustan at the time. His name was Emperor Akbar. He was a Muslim. Can you all hear me? No, I can't hear myself, so I don't know. Emperor Akbar, he lived in a city called Agra. And he had a palace in Agra. And from Agra he ruled the whole of Hindustan. And he was very, very fond of sports, and he was very, very fond of his people. He loved them. Whether they were Muslim, non-Muslim, he loved them. They were his people. And he was very generous to them. And he was famous for his generosity. That was one of his most endearing attributes that's lasted through the ages. He had lots of wealth and he didn't care how much of it he gave away. And his people loved him for that. As I said before, he loved sports and contests, and he loved hunting. And one day he took 3 of his best horsemen from the army and he went out 5 o'clock in the morning for a tiger hunt. And they went riding out across the plains. And while they were riding across the plains, they saw the most magnificent tiger they'd ever seen, watching them from behind the grass. The minute they saw him and he saw that they saw them, he took off. And they went barreling after him. But this was no ordinary tiger. He chased a lot of tigers before, but nothing like this. This tiger, just as they start to catch up with him, just when they thought they had him beaten, he'd suddenly get a whole new burst of energy and tear off another direction. And the horses would crash into each other as they try to catch up with him. And just when they thought he'd gone up a tree, he'd suddenly dart from behind that tree and disappear somewhere else, and they'd go chasing in a different direction. And he led them all over, maybe about a 20 square kilometre area. The horses were getting really tired, and the tiger seemed to be getting further and further away. Mariam, go back to Mum. Come on. Love story. Finally they lost sight of the tiger. They also lost sight of Agra. And they were also starting to lose sight of the sun. It was getting lower and lower and lower in the sky. And they saw some trees in a big clump. They went over to that, looked like the start of a forest. They were hoping maybe they might find a road or something, or maybe a river. They could get their bearings and find their way back to Agra before it got dark, because they didn't bring blankets. As they went through the forest, they did find a road, and they followed that road along, and it looked like any other road. And then another road went across it. Oh great, so we got a road going this way, a road going this way, a road going this way, and the road we just came along, behind us. They had no idea which way to go. The emperor said to his horsemen, remember these are the best, he said, tell me men, which of these roads goes to Agra? And just then the men, they found it was real necessary and a good excuse for them to check their stirrups were nice and tight and check the saddles were on properly and have a look around the trees and anything except let the emperor know they had no idea. And it's pretty embarrassing to be one of the emperor's best horsemen and not know where you are. Suddenly a boy came walking down the street. And the emperor's horsemen, suddenly happy to have something to do, make it look like they were actually doing something, they barreled on after him and brought him in front of the emperor. The emperor looked down at the boy and said, tell me, boy, which of these roads here goes to Agra? And the boy addressed him respectfully, Jahanpana, These roads don't go anywhere, they just sit on the ground. And he started to laugh at his little joke. The emperor wasn't laughing. And the boy finished laughing and he said to him, you see, Jahanpana, it's sort of a very nice respectful term, Jahanpana, roads don't travel, people do. The emperor still wasn't laughing. He said, what's your name, boy? He said, my name is Mahesh Das. What's yours? He said, I am Emperor Akbar, Emperor of all of Hindustan. Mahesh Das said to him, well, I'm real pleased to meet you. The emperor smiled a little bit and he said, I like you, boy. You're not afraid. You're fearless. I like fearless boys like you. He said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you tell me which of these roads goes to Agra, and I'll reward you for that. And also for your bravery. And he says, very well, Jahanpana, this road here goes to Agra. May you find it with safety, and may Allah guide your way. The emperor smiled at him and said, thank you very much, Mahesh Das. He said, now I don't have anything I can give you that's of good value, because we're out tiger hunting. But he said, I'll tell you what, you take this ring. And he took the ring off his finger and handed it to him. This is a huge gold ring. Yeah, totally, he's generous. And he said, you keep this with you. When you come to the city of Agra, you come straight to the palace gates, you show this to the sentries, they'll recognize that it's my ring and they'll let you in. And when you come in, I'm going to reward you there. He said, thank you very much, Jahanpana, you're very generous, and I'll never forget this day. The emperor said, I'll never forget this day either. Good day to you, Mahesh Das. And off they went up the road back to Agra.